Pregame.com.
Welcome back to Pregame.tv. Bryan Leonard and Brady Kannon here, the B team with you on a Tuesday. The S team here earlier today, Scott Spreitzer and Steve Fezzik. And football season, of course, is upon us. College football getting kicked off last week. We're into week 2. Bryan Leonard, one of our college football experts here at Pregame, went 4-1 with his premium plays. And now it's my turn. The NFL is my area of specialty with Pregame. And we're going to be going to Lincoln Financial Field. The Philadelphia Eagles will host the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 1. An interesting non-conference matchup between a couple of relatively new coaches. Of course, Gus Bradley, brand new for the Jaguars, and Chip Kelly in his second year with the Eagles. I think it ought to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, it should be here. And you're finding a double-digit underdog here with a team that doesn't play a lot of defense in the Eagles.
Yeah, very interesting. And, you know, the Jaguars, it's kind of funny. I mean, last year, I'm not sure, maybe you can figure 2 or 3 times that they were a single-digit dog all last season. But it was a little bit surprising to me to see that this season they were a double-digit dog again right out of the gate. Now, Philly's, you know, proven to be a pretty good team, but I think the Jaguars have improved so far from what we've seen in the preseason.
Yeah, I agree. The Jaguars are a team I'm looking to play on this season. A lot of times, you know, you see it with Oakland, you see it with a lot of teams that they just don't get over the hump, and everybody expects that to continue. I said that last year. Cleveland Browns were my under pick for the year. I just didn't see them improving at all. And sure enough, they come back with another 5-win season, which is common for them. But I think the Jaguars they've had some nice draft picks, and they've got some nice young talent on that team, and that's a team we're looking to make money on. You don't have to win the game straight up. That's the best thing about sports.
Yeah, right.
You don't have to win the game straight up in order to make money.
Well, it's interesting. The Jaguars, they had the 3rd worst defense last season. They gave up over 28 points a game. And what did they do in the draft? Out of the 9 players they drafted, 6 of them were offensive. And I think part of that plays into the fact that Gus Bradley is a defensive guy. He comes from coaching linebackers at Tampa Bay and being a coordinator at Seattle, you know, very invested in a defensive side of the ball. And I think he probably looked at his personnel and felt they weren't too bad off, and he went after some receivers: Marquise Lee, Allen Hurns, Allen Robinson. He's got Mercedes Lewis, and of course they drafted Blake Bortles. All of these guys have looked pretty good in the preseason.
Yeah, when you spend your #1 draft pick on a quarterback, you either want to build guys around him to protect him, or you want to build some targets out there so he doesn't have to take the sacks and possibly get hurt. So I think it was a wise move.
Yeah, and they did a little bit of both. They got him some weapons at wide receiver, and they got a couple of offensive linemen as well. So I think I have to believe he felt they were okay defensively despite what they did last year. And, you know, the proof was in the pudding. They ranked pretty well in the preseason defensively in the games that they played. If, you know, they were all 15-14, 17-16, 12-13 type of stuff. And, you know, it looked pretty good for them.
Yeah, I don't want to buy too much into the preseason because the starters play differing amounts. And obviously you don't have game plans a lot of times. But, yeah, this is a team, like I said, I'm going to be looking to play on them. And I think as long as they don't actually win the games, you know, they can cover. But if they don't put a lot of wins in the win column, they'll means as the season goes on, we'll even get, you know,
they're
more
still going to be perceived as the Jaguars.
That's correct.
And that they continue to lose. Now, on the other side, the Eagles, we know they were a bad defense last year, the 2nd worst in the league. They did try to address that. They drafted 5 defensive players out of the 7 they took in the draft, and it doesn't seem to have paid a lot of dividends so far in the preseason. You know, and again, we're not putting all of our stock into the preseason, but they gave up a lot of points.
Yeah, and I expect that to continue again this year. Anytime you have an offense that has quick strike capability like the Eagles do, the defense is going to be on the field more often.
Right.
So a lot of times you'll see a team, the stats are a lot worse than the defense actually is, but this Philadelphia team, I'm afraid, is a lot to be desired defensively.
Well, and I agree with what you're saying there, too. I'm not sure this defense is as bad as their stats indicate, but they have to play a lot more defense than most teams do.
Right.
You ready to make this one official?
Let's do it.
Week 1 in the NFL, we're going to travel to Philadelphia. We're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I want to take a look at the total in this game. You know, the totals in the NFL these days are very inflated. You've got a lot of penalty flags, a lot of pass interference. It's fantasy football season out there. But this is 52.5 points. And, folks, I'm going over the total. We know about these two defenses. The Jaguars had the third worst in the league last year. Philadelphia had the second worst in the league last year. Now, the Jaguars have improved, but at the same time, I believe their offense has improved a great deal. They've got some good players at the skill positions. Toby Gerhart can run the ball. Marquise Lee had a decent preseason, caught a couple of touchdowns. Denard Robinson has actually evolved as a weapon for this team, and Blake Bortles had a very good preseason for this team. I think this team can put some points on the board, a lot more than they did last year. On the other side of the ball, we know Philadelphia can score points. They score in bunches. In fact, they averaged 33 points a game this preseason. So we've got a very improved offense and an improved defense on the Jaguars side of the ball, a static offense that was prolific last year and not so much improved in the Eagles side of the ball. One of the most electric offenses, and like I say, in the preseason to the tune of 33 points a game. And the Jaguars, I believe, this season coming in are placing an emphasis on offense because they feel comfortable with their defense, although it is maybe just a hair above average. And finally, my biggest reason for putting this one over the total, if you looked at last season in non-conference games, they literally went over about 65 to 68% of the time. It was just every time, especially in the second half of the season, that these two type of teams, non-conference affairs, posted on the card, they seem to go over the total all the time. And I'm going to bet that that trend continues and will until we see it different. We're going over the total, Jacksonville and Philadelphia, week 1, over 52.5. Make any sense?
Makes a lot of sense to me. I do like this one over, and you talked about how they did last year with the non-conference games going over. When you take a look at it, those are the least important games on your schedule. Mm-hmm. So obviously you don't know the teams, you don't prepare as much for them. You don't know the teams as much. Your divisional games are number 1. Your conference games are number 2. Non-conference number 3. Makes a lot of sense, and I'm in agreement with you. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game.
Yeah, I think with an improved offense and a defense that doesn't look improved already, with an offense that's outstanding, and then, like you say, the unfamiliarity. I think there's going to be some points scored in this game. And 52, I mean, when was the last time you went over 52.5?
Well, I was going to point that out. It used to be if a game was lined to 51 or above, it was an automatic play on the under.
Sure.
Well, that was the old NFL where you actually ran the football once in a while.
Right.
Anymore, it's just they know they do so well, but each team does so well passing the football. It's become a passing league, and with all the flags they had in the preseason, we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah,
once the regular
my
season
guess
starts.
is they won't throw as many in the regular season, but, who knows?
Yeah, I've heard both schools of thought on it. Some people say, hey, it's a rule. It's if you break it, you break it. But we will see. It'll be interesting how they go forward after the first week. Do the players make the adjustments, or do the refs make the adjustments?
I think that's a great thing to look at. Do the players or the referees make the adjustments? Well, it is week 1, and that is week 1 of the NFL in the books for our free pick videos. And week 2 for college football. Brian, of course, taking a look at East Carolina at South Carolina. I am on board with the over in Jacksonville and Philadelphia. We'll be back for more next week. Keep it here. It's pregame.tv.